In what's expected to be an entertaining political showdown this Thursday night, Florida Governor and 2024 Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis is setting the stage for a high-stakes debate with his California counterpart Gavin Newsom. Touted as not just a clash of governing philosophies, but also a prelude to a potential presidential rivalry, if not in 2024, then perhaps in the future. While Newsom consistently downplays 2024 presidential ambitions, his rising national profile fuels speculation about his future intentions. Meanwhile, DeSantis, amid a challenging national campaign and a dipping approval rating in Florida, likely sees this as more than a debate, but also a strategic opportunity to position himself against a formidable Democratic figure who's possibly eyeing the White House. It's a chance for both leaders to bolster their standings and rally their bases. For DeSantis, it's a crucial moment to rejuvenate his campaign and make a national impression. For Newsom, it's an opportunity to defend Biden's record and confront Republican policy objectives. With a narrower field of candidates in the GOP primary, we are seeing the remaining candidates picking up major endorsements. A political advocacy group backed by the Koch brothers recently threw their support behind Nikki Haley. And today, JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon also said that Haley is the candidate who has the best chance of unseating GOP frontrunner Donald Trump. What do we make of this? Joining us to discuss is Mike Leon, host of Can We Please Talk podcast. Mike Leon, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, Tiffany, thank you so much for having me again.
Now, big donors, including the billionaire Koch brothers, are backing Nikki Haley for president. That's the latest push to beat Trump. How do you read this, especially given the polls?
Yeah, it's so funny that now you're starting to see folks starting to weigh in. We saw Iowa Governor Reynolds back Ron DeSantis. Now we're seeing the donations that are coming in from the Koch brothers for Nikki Haley. I read it as similar to last time I was on. I was mentioning about how the debate performances went. And I think right now people are starting to see Nikki Haley's ascension after these debates. I mentioned to you, Tiffany, and I'm going to take a victory lap about Tim Scott would probably be dropping. And sure enough, he drops. And I think what's happening right now is you're starting to see, even before we get to January and the Iowa primary, you're starting to see a consolidation. And I think the money is starting to move towards Nikki Haley because we saw a poll in South Carolina trending upwards in her direction. We've seen her shoot up in morning consult polls, which registered Republicans. There's about 4,000 or so in those polls. And she's moving up continually. Now, the problem is that they're all chasing the person that's 40, 50 points ahead of them. But there's legal troubles ahead for the former president. We know that there's going to be trial dates around key campaign dates. Super Tuesday, for example, the former president could be in court. And I think right now what you're seeing is the donors are starting to realize we have to put our money behind somebody that we think can not only beat Trump in the GOP primary, but could also beat President Biden in the general. Nikki Haley's campaign has done that in terms of speaking to moderates and independents and Latinos and bringing in that coalition of voters. And I think right now the ear of those donors, she has caught on because of the messaging, because of the way she's performed in these debates.
Expanding on that point, what is Nikki Haley doing right that the donors are backing her?
Well, I think the biggest thing has been the humanizing word. She has used this a bunch of different times when speaking about issues that Republicans have been getting hammered on in the midterms, specifically around abortion, women's reproductive rights. She mentioned it in the first debate with Martha McCallum from Fox News. She mentioned it recently in the other debate. I think the other big thing that I was telling somebody this, a Republican strategist, this is right now the U.S. is involved in two wars, and there's a third potentially looming with respect to whatever China does with Taiwan. We have Russia, Ukraine. We have what's happening with Israel and Hamas, even though there's a pause right now in the fighting. And I think foreign policy wise, Nikki Haley is way above some of these other candidates, specifically Vivek Ramaswamy. We've seen the back and forth him had about Vladimir Putin and the way they would talk to President Xi of China. So I think that's what's happening right now. Foreign policy affects the U.S. economy. It affects things at home here, even though voters tend to rank it as lower issues. the billionaire donors know that President Trump ran on no new wars and being able to navigate the foreign policy waters. And I think Nikki Haley is carrying that torch. She was a former ambassador to the UN. And right now, she has put out the best plan in terms of messaging around what she would do for our allies involved in these wars and putting out the fires that could potentially come if China were to invade Taiwan. That's why I think the money is shifting towards her.
Now, there is going to be a debate between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom tomorrow. Sean Hannity wants this to be a red versus blue state debate. But what about the governors? What are we likely to see from them?
You know, I go back and forth with this. And, you know, obviously I worked at Fox News. For people that don't know, I know Sean Hannity personally. So I'm interested to see what this debate looks like. There's no audience for it. And I think right now for Ron DeSantis, I don't have an issue with him trying this, even though it's before next week's debate that'll be in Alabama and the fourth one. I think both governors are just trying to placate to a national audience that they'll have, you know, the ability to talk about some of the successes that they have had. And I think for Fox is trying to pigeonhole it of, you know, the Republicans versus the Democrats. I think for DeSantis, he needs to really champion some of the things that he's done in Florida, expanding upon teacher pay, the $20 billion surplus in the economy. And I think for Gavin Newsom, he's been quoted in several different publications talking about Democrats are not doing well on the messaging standpoint. He's been getting hammered for the homelessness issue that's happening in California, for people that are leaving the state because of the state income taxes, big blue dots like San Francisco, where there is not so much a housing crisis, but the market is very expensive for renters, for home buyers. And so people are leaving the state. And they're coming to DeSantis' state in Florida. So I think you'll see some of that back and forth between the two of them. But I think for Governor DeSantis, this is really an opportunity to go out there and champion some of the things that he has done well in Florida that other Republican voters across other states can capitalize on that will translate to him.
How should we read Newsom's moves here? He has said he won't run against President Biden, but is he angling for the presidency in 2028?
There's no other way that he wouldn't be. I mean, I think he was, you know, a year ago, both of these guys were as seen as the next future of these parties. If you remember, in November of last year, Governor DeSantis won by such a wide margin here in Florida that the Republican Party really wanted to capitalize on how we could take that entire, you know, votes that he won by and kind of take that across other states. Gavin Newsom, the same thing. He was so popular before the recall in the state. And then over the last 12 months, we've seen both of their political stars kind of come down a little bit more, where now you're seeing, you know, DeSantis has a challenger in Nikki Haley, which we just talked about. And Newsom has mentioned he doesn't want to go up against President Biden. But I think this is a perfect audition for him because he's mentioned he's watched a lot of Fox News. He's gone on Fox News. Sean Hannity's a friend of his. This is an area where he can kind of message to some of those folks that are a little bit more moderate in the Republican base that watch Fox News and message to them why he would be a good national candidate and some of the things that he's done in California that they could potentially get on board with from a national electorate perspective. So I think he is positioning himself pretty well for 28. But 12 months ago, everybody would have thought that this would be the presidential debate that we would see unfold in 2024 with these two stars.
A lot to watch out here for sure. Mike Leon, thank you so much for your time.
Tiffany, thank you as always.